Okay, good morning, my friends. Woke up to some really good news this morning about my electron flood theory and what they are doing now to change solar collection. Let's get into this. They're talking about these new materials and how they can get more energy, and I think I have some input to this. And there's the way they're doing it and the way I'm doing it are two separate different ways, and I think we can achieve more energy efficiency using light through a Venturi rather than light hitting a flat plate and driving electrons. Venturis accelerate and crush and divide, and I'll show you those things happening. And that's what they want to do. They want to divide the electrons from the dark part of the particle, which is the light. When it hits it, they want the electron to be pushed through and collected. That's really all we get is the electrons. So let me show you, and I think this could be a breakthrough. I'm hoping. Let's take a look. Okay, my friends, as you know, I have electron flood theory, dipole electron flood theory. Changes everything in physics and in chemistry, because these particles are not made of one, like hydrogen is in one gigantic proton and one tiny electron. It's made up of a ball like this of dipole electrons, and my count is about 1823 dipoles make up one proton. Light is made of two of these dipoles. We're going to get into this, but this is dipole electron flood theory. Now, they're trying to get more energy out of solar cells, and there's these perovskites, or I can't even pronounce that, to be perfectly honest. I'm going to call them perks.
Roger.
Yeah. Okay, before we get started, what is a solar collector? How does it work? All it is a receiver light hitting a panel and driving extra electrons, which are nothing more than this white stuff, onto a panel that collects it. Now let me show you what a solar panel looks like. Very simple device. And then we could do this inside this box, so we don't need a solar panel. This is a laser inside this box with its own little collector panel, and I'll show you how it would work. All right, it doesn't get any simpler than this. A solar panel, how does it work? Light from the sun is made up of tiny particles called photons. Yes, I just showed you those. They hit this surface, okay? They drive electrons down. So the photons hit the solar panel here, knocking electrons free of the silicon atoms. So there's silicon atoms in here, and every now and then they'll hit an electron and it'll drive it away. All right, it'll knock that electron free from the silicon atoms within the solar cell. Then it goes through what's called a photodiode. It goes through one side, can't come out the other side. It says these loose electrons are now free to move, creating electric current from the positive and negative charges now present, because it's a one-way diode, basically. It allows the electricity to go through, can't come back out. They pass through the layers of the solar cell. They're called semiconductors. They conduct, but not 100%. So they let it through, but it won't let it come back. They're positive, negative junctions. The negatives go through and they can't come back. Now, eventually, it collects enough here where it just runs out as DC current. It's the same thing as like a battery. And then it goes from the battery, the DC current, into something that converts it into AC power, because that's what we work on, alternating current. Direct current means the electricity goes in one way and just keeps going out the other way. Alternating current means go bouncing back and forth, and that's what this does. All right, that's a converter. It's an inverter converter, whatever you want to call it, and it turns the one way into back and forth. That's as simple as it gets. All it does is it hits here and drives electrons through. What did I just show you a minute ago? I showed you the identical same thing. It hits here our collector, our Venturi, and the electrons come through, or just scads of them, scads and scads. They don't get hardly any movement of electrons in these solar panels, especially when you got cloudy days and so forth. They're just basic waste of time. All right, this makes it look even simpler. It's as simple as this. The light hits the solar panel. It allows some free electrons to push through the panel, and they come up through this semiconductor material. Once they get past this layer here, the substrate, they can't go anywhere else but go back through out to somewhere, to a battery, or to be used. In this case, it's through a light bulb. And that's all it is. And then they recircle around to ground again. It's as simple as that. That's what, and this is exactly what I'm showing you in my little demonstration here. The light comes through. All we have is white coming through here. It comes down through into a battery or wherever you want, into those inverters, and then drives your motors and so forth. As simple as that. And you could have it in this box and collect, I think, virtually unlimited amount of electricity. And then you could have 220, 110, 50 cycles, 60 cycles, AC, DC, USB, anything you want coming out of here. Carry it around in a lunchbox, just like that. Of course, that's a Geiger counter, but an old Geiger counter. We don't use those type anymore. You got this kind like over here to pick up the radiation. But anyway, it would be that small, basically. And I think you could run a car on that. I would think so. Okay, so these are some extremely wild claims. However, these are exact same particles that CERN and Fermilab and everybody else sees, only they're working with this to start with. Creates nothing but a bunch of trash. They see these particles, have no idea where they came from. I know where they came from. And the black particle is the extended particle, and it has a fixed size. The black one never changes. It has a fuzzy edge around it. Yes, it does. And the point-like particles, which is the glowy one, it has no size, basically, they say. It's an abstract. And zero-size particle have a field due to the effect of the field surrounding them. I agree with that. And it has no weight whatsoever. It doesn't have any weight whatsoever. That has all the weight and is all the mass. That's dark matter. It's a muon. And that's from Fermilab. And we found those particles right here in our research. In our experiments. Where are those particles? Here they are. Fermilab, you just saw, he had the glowy edge around it, and the point particle has no mass. Here it is right here. There's the glowy edge around a black one, and there's another black one here, and the glowy ones have no weight, but they can get big and puffy and energetic. They're energetic as hell. These have no energy. They don't emit, they don't absorb, they don't reflect. All they are is a carrier for the white particles. And they're locked together tighter than can be. That's a photon. Now they're starting with huge particles like this instead of, we're starting with two of these little ones. They're starting with a big ball like that. And when they smash together, here's what happens. They see all this debris. So they got a couple of these coming, boom, and then they just see all this stuff go flying everywhere. It's a particle zoo. They have chunks like this, big ones that'll kill you. They have little bitty ones that they see, the same sort of stuff we're working with, the photons and the particles, muons and electron neutrinos. They see them, they just don't know where they came from because they started with too much to begin with. We started with light. So here's what we started with right here. We started with the particles of light. That's the smallest particle that exists that's stable, which is a photon. Below that, half of that is what we always considered to be an electron. All right, one black and one white is an electron. Now let me do this. Let me turn this light off. Because sometimes you can see much better, and something interferes with the light when I start moving around here. No, and it doesn't when we're in the dark. Now, that is a neutrino. These are neutrinos. They're not fully fledged photons. These are fully fledged because they're highly energetic, because they're seriously being pushed back at by this Venturi. So they now are already fully into their photon phase. The other ones haven't really come into photons. These are getting stronger because they're right in the path of the Venturi. So if you're right dead nuts coming through the Venturi, you're going to get fluffy. And that's what these are. Those are photons. And the green ones do exactly the same thing. They're identical. They're green, only they're much, much more powerful. And this one's just getting ready to flip. You see, as they go forward, this one here will charge up. See, it's getting charged up. It's going to flip, and the back one is going to come up and take over. The same thing that happens with the red ones. The red ones are here, and this one has already flipped. You see, the white was at the top. Now it's at the bottom. All right, that's one picture of all, one shot. That's the same particles coming through, gaining energy. It's so fast you can't just get one little piece at a time. You see a row of stuff like this here. This is at the Venturi. Now look at this. This is all these ripples coming out because they're pulsating from the impact at the Venturi. And this one had some black coming through with the white. Normally, in the other ones, Rod Warren did this, and in the other ones, the white was all he let through. This time, a little bit of black and a lot of white. Now, we would want all white, and here's the other ones that do all white. Well, where is it here? Well, this shows you the whole batch at once. Here's just what light looks like, coming through a pulse red laser. All of these are little particles in the air of gases and electrons and so forth. They glow because this makes it glow. All right, everything gives off a little bit of energy when they glow, and we're using CMOS so we can see. We're looking at energy here. This is energy. Now, here's when that particle starts to accelerate, because the particle is in the wave, and what the ball of magnetism is huge. So the particle starts to rip itself right out of the magnetic wave, just like accelerating in a jet fighter. And then it hits the Venturi and it separates. Here is 100% white. 100%. There's no black whatsoever coming through. But it does attach immediately because that's what it desperately wants to be attached to the black. So we have to put that receiver right in between where it turns completely white before it gets to the black, feed it down into our receiver right here. All right, before it gets to the black, it would turn black right here. Black and white would rejoin each other because they came through black and white together here. I showed you what they looked like originally. They split at the Venturi. The white is all by itself now. That's all we want. It has no weight whatsoever. You put that in your car, it won't change the weight of your car. You can charge your car up fully charged. It weighs 4,000 pounds. You drive 500 miles, it's almost empty. It still weighs 4,000 pounds. You fill it back up with electricity, still weighs 4,000 pounds. These have no weight, and that's exactly what I show. There's no question whatsoever. These are those same particles. And the black ones are the ones that have the weight. They can't get through the Venturi, and they end up slapping the white through the Venturi. So it doesn't get any better than that. All right, at the Venturi, it completely separates the white from the black. And look at what's coming through here. This is that's just raw electricity. This is just a little tiny laser. And here is all the Higgs fields when these white ones recombine with the black. CERN and Fermi have it totally backwards. They say the Higgs fields decay to become these particles. No, these particles are decayed and come back to being Higgs. These are the Higgs being reformed as the light finishes its exit out of the Venturi. So here's where the Higgs are showing up right here. There's the Higgs showing up right there. We got to get in front of that before, because the Higgs is nothing more than the black and the white recombining. That's what the Higgs are. Is that when the white smashes back into the black. Right here, just right here. This is coming through the Venturi completely white, and they start picking up the black particles. And then they just spin like crazy, the Higgs fields. I don't know why. Well, I sort of do, but I'm not sure. So I'll stay away from that. And again, these are all the different particles. And light spins. You see this? Light is a spinner. It doesn't flap like this. And the reason you get these interference patterns is because they flap back and forth with a double slit. This is single slit. The light is spinning. Sometimes it goes that way, sometimes it goes this way, coming through the slit. And it hates each other. The white ones do not want to be next to each other, so they separate out, and they make themselves completely in their own lines. So they stay away from each other. You stay in your line, I'll stay in mine. It's push to shove. I go there, you're never going to get together. And they use this way, and some go that way. That's why this is set up just like a drill bit. And most of them get compacted in the center. That's why it's so white in the center. All right, let me just try to make you understand from top to bottom. Fermilab smashes huge particles together, and they can see these are the tiniest particles. And they know this one has no weight, but it burns like hell. That has no burn and has all the weight and has that little glow around it. Now, they don't realize that two of these together back to back, make up a photon. That's not in their realm of understanding. We can see these, and we know what's happening here. They're moving forward through here, and the black and the white are attached together. It just as strong as it can possibly be. They would call that the strong nuclear force. They are tight as hell. And when one separates from the other, that's the only thing it wants to do is for that black to get, the white to get back to the black. All right, the black is ground. The white is the energy, and it just wants to be attached to that so desperately. It will move through motors and heaters and resistance, and even your human body. It'll explode your body to get down to ground. And this is considered the ground, the black. So these can get big and small, as you can see right here. And as they come through the air, they hit against these little particles that are in front of them, which are all the gases and electrons that are in the air. This one's protected from getting pumped up. This one's getting pumped up, and as it does, flip, it flops. This one comes to the front, this one goes to the back, and sort of discharges, basically. This one charges back up, and it flops again. That's called a muon wobble. Now, you see them attached together here, all right? No question whatsoever, they're attached. The green, the blue, the red, they're all the same particle. Only one's more powerful than the other. And the red we can watch because it's not as powerful as the green or the blue, so we can see it actually doing its job as it does it. And that again was the particle, which is this, and it spits and it's gaining power. As this thing pumps itself up, it gains. But it's flipping all the time. You know, it charges, and it's just flopping, but it's getting so powerful now. When it hits the Venturi, it does this. It splits. The black can't get through. The white can get through the Venturi. The black can't. Now, we're spitting all that white back out there. We want to absorb that. I have some new designs for the Venturi that would put the Venturi inside of like a capsule. And anything that splashed back out would be absorbed in that capsule. I got some new ideas coming up, and you can vary the intensity and the frequency of the black particles, which is nothing more than almost like a hammer. Bam, 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 because they can't get through. They hit and they bounce back. They hit and they bounce back. They hit and they bounce back. They push the white, and I show you there's no question they push the white, because here's what happens. There's the black pushing the white. Now, at the Venturi, if the black couldn't get through, it'd go bam, and the white would just squirt through, and the black would bounce back. Bam, 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 bam. And that's exactly what we see, but it's a sort of a mess now. All right, it's just a mess because we're getting a hell of a lot of white. I mean, a ton of white, way more than anybody else could get. You know, in a solar panel, you're just going to get a few of these. Very few. We just got unbelievable number of electrons coming through there. Unbelievable. And they have no weight. They have no weight whatsoever. And that's exactly what you want to put in your car. We can focus this in, just like I showed you, and just run it all day long. And you could have literally thousands of these because they are absolutely minuscule. And when they came through there, you would have that receiver on the other side and then put it through your rectifiers or whatever you want to do to convert it and do whatever you want with it, AC, DC, whatever. And it's off of the grid, handheld, solid state. You started with light, so you're never going to get these big chunks of particles smacking you, which is what they use is nuclear particles, big particles. And when they smash, they're just big chunks. That X particle will knock your eyeball right out of your head. They're huge, they're chunks, they're big things. When they hit you, they will break your chromosomes, they'll cause all kinds of cellular damage. These, we're starting with light. You get hit by light all the time. You can get too much light, yes, and then you can get burned from light, absolutely. And you can get skin cancer from light, yes, because it damages your cells if it's extremely high intensity for a long enough time. But we have this inside of a box. You're never even going to know what's happening. That's it. You can't get out of there. And the only way it can get out is coming down into our batteries or right into the plugs and just start using it. All right, I think I showed you everything that's on this page here. And that's the Dirac neutrino. These are the tiniest particles that exist. Sometimes they're not completely in the black and white phase, as I showed you before. These are Majorna neutrinos. Dirac neutrino is the actual complete black and white photon or electron. All right, when they're black and white together like that, that's a Dirac neutrino. When they're like this, they're in the Majorna phase. They see them like this, and they really don't know what to make of them. They're not a black and white ball. They're sort of a blur of other stuff, and semi-similar intensities of light on both sides. So they're in a phase of flipping. Let's put it that way. When they see the Majorna, it's right in a phase of flipping into a Dirac. All right, I hope you understand that. This is when they're completely perfect, just as I showed you the photons. And then sometimes they see them like this. They're sort of not really separated completely, but they're still together. They're just in the transition of flipping into a Dirac. Okay, so our neutrino is the smallest particle that exists. The lowest non-zero mass particle we know of is the neutrinos, and that's Don Lincoln, who I dealt with him. And he pointed out that, however, we don't have the exact measurement of a neutrino's mass because the instruments used to calculate mass of a fundamental particle aren't sensitive enough. Now, this was just in a couple of years ago, 2021. Now, I show these fundamental particles, the neutrinos, which is the Dirac neutrino. I showed them, and they are, one of them has no weight whatsoever, and the other one has all the weight. So one of them, as far as I can tell, the weight has no weight whatsoever. It must have something there, but I can't find any. And I've watched where they charged up a car. Well, first of all, it was discharged, completely discharged, dead. They put it on a weight scale, and it weighed, let's say 4,000 pounds. I can't remember the weight. Let's just say 4,000 even. And I mean, really, this was very very well calibrated scale. They went out and they drove it until, they actually charged it up full charge. Fully charged, still weighed identically the same weight. I mean identical, within grams. And they could drive around for 500 miles. Now, in a car, you're going to use 60 pounds worth of gasoline to drive that 500 miles, or probably more. I don't know. Depends on how much, what your efficiency is. But you're going to use a hell of a lot of weight and particles, and those particles will become huge in the air instead of condensed as they are in the fluids of gasoline and so forth. So we're never going to expand gases. We're never going to have radioactive particles because we started with light. We end up with the tiniest particles. They refuse back together. They turn into electricity. And we are using literally a cell phone to see these particles. And CERN is also using CMOS. Cell phones work on CMOS. CERN just upgraded to use CMOS. But they have to use a hardened CMOS. We can use a cell phone because we started with particles this big. All right, they're starting with these. When they hit their CMOS, they smash it like this. I told them that years ago because I showed University of Geneva. I said, here's what we're doing. We're creating electron showers, and we're doing it with light instead of protons. And they were interested. And then before long, I don't know if it had anything to do with me, but I said we're focusing. Well, here's what I showed them. I showed them exactly this. Well, there's the Majorna and the Dirac. I showed them exactly these. Showed them this whole thing. I said we're accelerating using a Venturi. We're getting the white and the black separated, and we're using CMOS to see it. We focus it through a Venturi. The next thing I know, about a year later, they shut down CERN and they upgraded it to focus. They put in all kind of very expensive magnets to make it focus better, and they put in hardened CMOS to be able to watch this. Before, they were using charge-coupled devices, and they were saying, well, every time you look at it, it changes the outcome. So all you got to do is stand there and look at it, and everything changes. No, it doesn't. It's because you're putting adding extra light into it, which changes the dynamics of the particles, or you got a device in there that is absorbing some of the energy, so obviously it's going to change. That's what they were doing. It was because they had something interfering with what was going on. If you sit back here with CMOS, all we're doing is examining what's happened coming out of it. We have no interaction with this field whatsoever, other than sitting back here with a CMOS looking at it. All right, I'm going to make it as simple as I can make it, and it is simple. The standard model says a proton is a huge ball like this, and it has one positive charge. They say an electron is a tiny, tiny thing like this, almost weightless, and it has the exact same charge, only opposite, but it's so tiny, and this is huge. So this is a -1, and this is a +1. And for some reason, they don't attract together, and they have never been able to explain that. It just doesn't work. It's just wrong. What this really is this. All right? These are dipoles. They are not one gigantic positive and one tiny. They're a whole batch of positives attached to a whole batch of negatives. That's what a dipole is. It's a black and white particle together. I showed them to you very clearly. Now, when you put them in a mass bigger than a light, bigger than a photon, the next stable particle is a proton. And what happens is that this particular region, 1823 or so, of these dipoles, it gets stable. Now, I can't tell you exactly why, but I say all the white ones coat the black ones. I originally thought it might be like this, where they were layered, and the black ones were also layered. But now I think it's strictly the black ones go to all the center, and all the white ones collect around the outside. And in the hydrogen, you have 1823 or 24 of these in the center, and then 1823 or 24 on the outside. You may have some more that want to get in, and they're not allowed because these will push them back. And that's what happens as the particles get bigger and bigger and bigger. You get these layers. So your first layer is really tight, and that's what's going to shoot off in the blue range. The next layer is trying to get in, but these guys are pushing them back out. So they're sort of fighting each other, and the next one is going to be the green. And then if it gets bigger, bigger, bigger than that, then the red ones will be way on the outside because they don't have much energy at all. They're trying to get in, but they're so far away that there's really not much energy there. And the green ones are pushing them away, so they're trying to work their way in. This is what a proton really looks like. It's not one, and like hydrogen, it's not one big ball like this and one tiny little electron. It's something equivalent to that, only it could be completely surrounded. That's why we've never seen any of the dark matter, because every time we look at anything, it's completely surrounded with the white. The white is what bounces back at us. Those are what creates photons of light. That's why we've never seen the dark matter. The only reason you can see it in our experiments is it's laying on top of the white. I mean, laying on top of the white. Somewhere I got it around here. Anyway, yeah, here it is right here. The only reason you see it is because it's laying on top of the white. There's black particles all over here, but you can't see them until they're like sort of hanging on top of over the white, blocking the white. And you're never going to see this in real life. All you're going to see is the red. All right? The only time you see the black is when it's right on top of the glowy white, so it blocks out the glow. But normally, there's tons of black everywhere. They're everywhere. They are everywhere. And they have to be hanging around out here just waiting, because the ones coming through here didn't get through. Where'd these come from? They have to be extra ones just waiting over here to grab onto these white ones. These I don't think are going to jump over and go here. So we have, there's black ones hanging around everywhere, it seems to me. The other thing to take out of this is the black ones have to be just hanging around. So that's one thing. The second thing is the white only, its whole purpose in life is to get down to the black. The white is electricity. It's lightning, it's static, it's free electrons in the air. They will to get to ground. Ground has a whole batch of this extra black. And even from the ground up, apparently, there's a whole batch of extra black. Because the white will want to get down to ground, it'll travel through there to get to the ground. All right, the ground wants to suck up every bit of white that it can get. That's why you touch static, it pops right off you, because you had a whole batch of this extra white stuck on you. You take electricity, it's nothing more than this white. It goes right to ground. Lightning is nothing more than this white. You can see it. All right, it will do anything it can to get to the black. And that's why if we put a solar collector right here, we are golden, my friends. All right, just to prove my point, this is just basic solar cells, science about it. How do they work? Simplest term, solar panels allow particles of light called photons to knock electrons free from atoms. These freed electrons generate a flow of electricity. Our freed electrons come from keeping the black from going with the white. Listen to this. It says electrons are those nearly weightless white particles. Negatively charged particles zip around the empty space surrounding the nucleus. That's not necessarily true, which is the positive middle part made of protons and neutrons. I say the whole thing is made of dipoles. All right? Electrons stay within a certain range of the nucleus because of their electromagnetic attraction, positive and negative attraction. No, it's insanity. If it's positive in the center and negative here, they would slam back together. It never worked. It still doesn't work. They are dipoles. Now, removing an electron from its orbit requires energy. Exactly. We don't use any energy at all. We put it through the Venturi. No energy to rip it apart. So removing an electron from its orbit requires energy to overcome that attraction. They are held tight as hell. You got to rip that apart. When you do generation of electricity, you're using a lot of energy to generate the electricity. We're using no energy at all. We're shooting that electricity through that Venturi, coming out with white. That's it. So removing an electron from its orbit requires energy to overcome the attraction. It's kind of like if you wanted to kick the Earth out of its orbit from the sun, you'd need some energy, just a lot more. Well, we don't have to kick anything out of anywhere. We're just squirting white through here, and the black can't get through. It's as simple as that. And all you're working with is light. There's no danger, there's no contamination, there's no expansion, there's no radiation, there's nothing. Nothing but free energy. All right, I'm going to leave it at this. I'm going to try to get a hold of these people, because what they're doing is they're making a new receiving metals. They will, instead of silicon, they're going to put some kind of metals in there. Now, I recommend they use isotopes, because isotopes are certain types of molecules, but they have extra electrons. So an isotope, I think, will conduct better than the standard stable molecules. Now, I don't know how they can do that or what they can use specifically. However, they are getting up to a 25% efficiency ratio on these cells. But all they're using is solar cells, exact same thing. Because all they're letting is the light hit it. That's all. We're sending high-powered laser, which doesn't take much energy to create. It's very cheap to do this. And then once that high-powered energy comes, we divide the black from the white, that's all. Now, we could use green, we could use blue, we could use red, it depends. And the different color intensity, all the way up to ultraviolet, is going to give you more voltage, basically, more push. I think. I don't know, because once you get that white into the battery, I mean, it depends on the resistance in the circuitry that will determine how much electricity is going to be allowed through there. Once you separate the white from the black, even though we're using red to start with, I think the white is going to be exactly the same white as if it was started from green or blue. It's the same electron. It's just that we're feeding it through that Venturi at a much, really pushing harder. When you get to the red, it's like boom, boom, boom. When you're at the blue, it's ultraviolet. It's just so you got a real push of electrons, and you could probably regulate it with some kind of little regulator. I want to use my blue LEDs now instead of my green or red or whatever. I mean, there's just so much you could do here, but it's got to be looked at. I've been stagnant on this because I don't have the wherewithal to do this. I don't have any money to do this stuff. This doesn't cost us much. Believe me, I couldn't do this. And Rod Warren was the one that discovered this. He gets all the credit for understanding. Well, he didn't understand what he did. He was just trying to do a double slit experiment, but he uses a single slit. When I saw this, I got a hold of him, and he graciously worked with me for years. And I'm not talking just a few, several, 5 probably, and never got a single thing out of it other than just helping me, and I appreciate that in the biggest way. And now he's disassociated himself from this for whatever reason, I don't know, and I don't blame him. It was he took a lot of hits for this, going outside the box. Anytime you do, you get beat up. Somebody's going to not want you to do it, and that's what happens every single time. Well, we need something to happen to fix this planet, my friends. This planet is screwed. And if we can get free energy, there's nothing better than that. Without damaging the environment, it won't, no pollution, no, radioactive, nothing. If this works, and I can't guarantee it works, but I don't see any reason it shouldn't work. None. Zero. Electron showers are the top of the line that you can get for energy. Electron showers go up into the trillions of electron volts. We would start with probably several million electron volts here. But by the time we got here, we should have at least billions, and maybe even trillions, depending upon what we started with for a laser and how many pulses per second and all that business. Now, again, there's some engineering we want to do to make this go into a big ball instead of a splashing like this, because we're losing a lot of it. Because where we would put the harvester is right here. Now, if we could figure it out where we could put a big ball around this whole thing, and the light would just come right through the center, hit the venturi here, and everything that turned white in there would be absorbed. You should be able to run cars, houses, out in the fields, clean up the water supplies. You could do this. I mean, and they're dirt cheap. This is dirt cheap. All right. So anyway, I love you all. Please, somebody do something about this. Somebody's got to look into this. I don't have the wherewithal to do this. I don't have any funding. I don't have any resources. But you just saw what I showed you, and if you don't see what I showed you, and you don't see the increase in energy there is no other possibility. Increase in luminosity is increase in energy. This is energy from a subatomic nuclear explosion. This is fission, and that is fusion. When the black separates from the white, which it did, and it comes back together, that's fusion. Separation is fission, recombination is fusion. Originally, that's what they were right there. They were fused together. We fissioned them, and then they automatically fuse back together. And the fusing back together, if we could keep that white separated, when that fuses back together, that's what electricity is. It runs through motors. It does whatever it has to do to get back to the black. All right? I love you all. Bye.